Regular session of Caddo Parish Commission to order, February 22nd. Roll call.
Dominic, Johnson, Williams, Lynn, Bowman, Baker, Lynch, Escaday, Thibodeau, Cox, Smith, Epperson. We have a quorum, Mr. President.
All the way down here.
All right, indication by Mr. Escaday, and our pledge will be by Mr. Williams.
Bow your heads. Heavenly Father, look upon us this day and help us to do the work that we're here to do, representing the people, trying to make the parish better, a better place. Ask your blessings on our nation, special blessings on all those in the military who defend us every day and put everything on the line, as well as bless their families who support them in their endeavors.
Yes.
Help us to remain free and prosperous nation. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Turn and face the flag and render a proper salute to the flag. And repeat after me. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
So, do we have any agenda additions? Don't see any. Citizens' comments. Citizens who wish to address the Commission on any issue other than zoning, please fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and return to the President or the Clerk of the Commission. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. And I have one. Dinah Sal.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon.
Name and address, please.
Dinah Sal at 1672 David Rains, Apartments, King Manors 2, Shreveport. I recently moved here to Shreveport from Fort Lauderdale, and noticed there's a vast difference in code enforcement and the quality of living. But it was very difficult getting someone on the phone to help me deal with the apartment complex that I was living at. And so finally, after calling maybe 15 people, I've got Mr. Michael Williams on the phone, and I found him to be very helpful in communicating with the business that I was dealing with.
All right, did you finally get your problem handled?
Very fast. I mean, it took me 2-3 days to get the right person on the phone, but finally when I spoke to Mr. Michael Williams, things were done quick, fast, and in a hurry. Found that he did a very great job representing his town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you for coming, Dana. Dana had a problem with her landlord. And she just moved here, like she said, from another state that has different ordinances and codes. She had been there for 3 days and signed a lease, but when they signed the lease, they showed the apartment at night. And recognized that the apartment had several deficiencies. Even the roaches was smart enough to come out in 48 hours. And she called me with her problem, and she said she wanted to break her lease, and she had paid approximately $2,000 down for her apartment, but was not pleased. So I so kindly called the management called the owner in New York, and we kind of struck a compromise where she's getting almost 80% of money back. And I think that was something she was really happy about, because she had nowhere to turn to, nowhere to go.
Absolutely nowhere. I mean, many people, I was told that yesterday was a holiday that most of the United States do not celebrate, which is Fat Tuesday. And phones just ringed yesterday, and today I was put on hold many times. So I found the government here to be very inefficient up until the time I spoke to Mr. Michael Williams. Because in Florida, there's only one number you call, and within an hour they're there at the building inspecting and shutting things down and getting things done. But it was very hard to get things done here. In the city of Shreveport, I found you guys to be like maybe 1,000 years behind the stuff that was going on in Florida, 1,000 years at least. And as soon as I spoke to Mr. Michael Williams, things got done. And I do appreciate you, sir, because without you, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. I'd still be calling, and I'd probably be on hold as of right now. waiting to speak to someone. So I think, but I would make one recommendation that you guys should probably communicate with cities outside of Louisiana to see how they're doing things, because they're extremely efficient.
Thank you.
Maybe if you guys can take some examples from them, I mean, you'd find there's an easier way of getting things done
Thank you, ma'am.
that help the community and individuals. Because other than that, I've just been dealing with ringing phones and placed on hold.
Mr. Escobar?
Let me ask you a question. Now, is this apartment that you were thinking about leasing, was that in the city?
Of Shreveport, yes.
You were calling the city?
Yes, I was calling the city. I'm told that you guys don't have code enforcement for apartments in the books yet, and you guys are working on that?
The city's working on that. So I just want to let you understand, I thought Mr. Williams was very generous and gracious to help you. Our jurisdiction on those kind of things, for the most part, lies outside of the corporate limits of the city. So we are a lot faster and a lot more reactive when we have the authority and jurisdiction in the city. But I know the city council and the mayor are working on those ordinances right now to protect people who are leasing property.
I understand that, and as I noted, is that many other cities already have these things in the books. You guys are getting these things in the books, but other cities have it already in the books for years now.
What I'm trying to explain,
but that was my only point.
What I'm trying to explain to you too is we're not the city. This body, will not enact those codes, those ordinances, those provisions, nor enforce them. We're happy to help, but we just want you to understand that the jurisdiction lies with the city and the city council. We're the governing county official, basically, if you're not used to the word
Parish.
Yes, but we're happy to help, but the city is going to have to resolve those issues. And we're happy to work with them, and we work with them on all the times on issues for the common good, and we'll continue to pursue that and work with them so that no one else experiences these problems.
Okay, thank you for your help.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Mr. Michael Williams.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, we have visitors.
Surprise.
Mr. Cox, Ted Cox, with Caddo Parish Juvenile Court Administrator.
Mr. President, thank you for the opportunity to let me speak, particularly Mr. Escaday, who put me on the agenda. Let me just tell you how I got here as far as kind of the scenario of events. Right after I found out that Commissioner Lynch was the chairman of the Juvenile Justice Committee, I gave her a call and we talked about some different programs. One program that's high on our list is the Facts of Life program. And I asked her if there would be perhaps an opportunity where we could have a meeting with the Juvenile Justice Committee, and we would like to see whether or not we could get sponsorship for this particular program. And I know we've been back and forth on this program a couple of times. And all due respect with her, and she's not here, but she said that she's looking for a long-term solution, which is the ideal solution as far as being able to fund different programs. But she was not in favor of a piecemeal type program, and I understand that. I mean, ideally, she's absolutely correct. We do need to find a long-term solution. But we came in front of you, I think it was back during November. Rick Foreman is the executive director of the Volunteers for Youth Justice. This program that we're trying to keep alive, the Facts of Life program, has been an excellent program. We've got great statistics as far as recidivism. Recidivism rate is very low in this program, and we've been able to, through the help of Mr. Walker, we've been able to show that there's been a reduction in the number of youth that have been placed in the detention center because of this program. So what I'm asking for, through Judge Matlock, Judge Young, and Judge Stone, is $35,000 that we will keep this program afloat until the end of June, where we'll have the opportunity to sit down and come up with some kind of long-term strategy, and hopefully we can convince folks this is such a good program that we can fund it again for a full year. Again, I know Judge Matlock was talking to Erica this morning about some of the funding issues, and we understand the state's cutting back on a lot of the funding through the Office of Juvenile Justice and the Office of Mental Health. But this is one program that we do have accurate statistics on, and it has been an excellent program. Recidivism is very low. I'm not sure just what the next step needs to be, but I am requesting through the juvenile court that we can get this bridge funding, so to speak, as we've labeled it, to help us through the end of the state's fiscal year. And then from there, we'll just have to take a look and see if we can continue the program. And there's a possibility, unfortunately, we may not be able to continue the program. But right now, this program is working, and it's keeping young people out of detention.
And when will this current funding end?
Well, funding is already ended for right now for the Youth Challenge, for the Volunteers for Youth Justice Facts of Life program. It's, right now, the funding for January and February is being funded by the judges through their judicial expense fund. Need be, we're going to try to find the funding for, the judges try to find the funding through March, but we're looking, to see if we can get to $35,000, which will carry us through the end of the fiscal year, the end of June.
Mr. Dominic?
Just a couple questions. So the judicial fund, the judges fund is done the January and February, is that correct?
Yes, we're the same,
What
the fiscal, we're in the calendar year with
what
the
was
commission.
the last thing I remember, we were here in November, did we fund it through December?
Yes, sir.
And that was what, through August through
That was
December?
August through December. You went
And
back.
I think we talked about re-looking at this at the first of the year. I can't remember all the details, but, we're going to look at the first of the year, which is already after the first of the year, to see how long we need to get it funded. And we're hoping to get some funds through the state. Of course, I guess what you're saying is the state appears they're going to cut all of this stuff out.
Well, there was a possibility that we might be able to get some funding through economic development. That didn't happen, so.
And basically what you're asking is some funding to allow it for a bridge from March, April, May, and June until
Right,
to
and
give us
maybe-
time to look at this to see if we can come up with a long-term solution. Of course, I know a lot of the commissioners have some issues with, we have so many different programs, whether it's Facts of Life or something else, and it seems like something always is getting added on. Which are the good ones, and how can we ultimately solve this solution? I guess that's what we're talking about right now, it's a long-term solution.
Commissioner Lynn has a great suggestion. He wants to be able to see the stats on all the programs.
Sure, I would
And
think.
unfortunately, right now, our database doesn't allow for that. But again, Mr. Walker is looking into making some adjustments so we can get the stats that you need on all the programs. That way, we can take a good hard look and see whether or not the other programs, just how good the other programs are compared to the Facts of Life. The reason we have such accurate stats on the Facts of Life is because Volunteers for Youth Justice is hand counting and going in and checking to see whether or not kids have go back in and commit another crime. So we know those stats are very, very accurate.
And, it's y'all's opinion, of course, we rely a lot on you guys and Mr. Foreman. If this is not done, then we're going to be looking at a higher bed count or more people.
Well, I don't want to come right out and say that. That's, we hope that, the judges have worked very closely with juvenile services to keep that number. Right now, I think the average is, maybe Clay can back me up on this, the average has been 21, 22, where 2 years ago there were 40, 42 kids in there. I'm just saying, as we lose certain programs, Facts of Life being one, and the Office of Juvenile Justice cutting back some of their funding on programs, there's a possibility that you could see a rise in the number of kids going into the detention center. But I'm not hanging that out there saying if you don't fund this program.
I understand. I was just, asking for your opinion on that or what you thought. You explained it. I don't have anything else at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cox, what is the formula, what does it cost per inmate at your facility?
Well, I probably need to defer to Mr. Clay Walker on that. He's the Director of Juvenile Services. With this, let me let him speak.
I ought to have it down by now, huh?
Well, I do have it, but I don't want to speak for Juvenile Services.
We run that facility now. We run the facility.
Somewhere just below $200, between $180 and about $230 a day, depending on the level of medication a child would need.
So what time of year will we talk? Just a year? What is one inmate a year?
One inmate a year would be, we don't keep kids for a year, so I don't know on an annual basis, but $200 to $230 a day. We keep kids an average of 9.6 days, so they're not very, very long, but
but it is relatively
A
expensive.
lot of these alternatives to incarceration help free up the beds for the most severe offenders.
They do. I think a program like this, actually what it would do, probably you're not going to have a Facts of Life kid go to detention, but a Facts of Life program is going to keep the child from reoffending. What you're talking about is a misdemeanor kid that's just running around causing some minor trouble. They get into Facts of Life and they get back on a better path, and they don't keep offending over and over.
And is the truancy, social service, how does the family incorporate into that, in the Facts of Life?
Very much in part of it. Everything we do, the parent is involved in the court. The court has the parent, the judges have the parent in court. They explain to the parent what the program is and what part they need to play in it. And if they don't, there can be contempt and all sorts of things. So generally, we get pretty good involvement.
One of the things we were very instrumental in years ago when I first came here was the boot camp program that I had the opportunity to go to Caddo, Texas with the late Johnny Vance. And we brought the boot camp program back here. And I returned back to commission. I hear that program no longer exists.
The funding was cut by the state for that. It's 4 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened on the funding. It was cut by OJJ. We were getting about $300,000 a year. When they decided to cut the program, Judge Matlock literally got a meeting with the governor. We went down to the governor, sat in his little personal office at the mansion, and explained to him what a great program it was, showed him all the stats. I don't know if you weren't on the commission at that time, but we've had a couple of parents come up here in front of the commission and explain what a great program it was and how they turned their children around. But the governor said he'd take a look at it, and we even talked to Commissioner Paul Rainwater, but they decided that they just wasn't going to give us $300,000.
Out of all the programs you do, that's one of the best nationally known programs that actually works, builds discipline, builds character, builds self-esteem. And I'm quite sure a lot of them young men ain't wearing pajamas. Y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Before we go any farther with the next speaker, I'll get to them in just a minute. Why don't we go ahead and put this on our work session agenda for March 5th, and I'll have Ms. Lynch meet before that time so that her committee can make a recommendation to us on March 5th.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Baker?
Mr. Cox, have you talked to anyone about partnering with them for this program? I was listening to Ms. Willis from the Community-Oriented Policing Department of the Shreveport Police Department, and she's talked about, looked like she had a program that's something similar to this. Maybe it's something that you all can probably partner with them.
Well, this is a very structured counseling program. If we would partner with anybody, the only way we could partner, they'd have to help us fund it. Now, we've taken a look at, grants are not, the amount of grants are not out there like they used to be. And here's a good example. About a week ago, there was a big splash in the paper about how Bossier City got this grant from the Louisiana Commission on Law Enforcement for their diversion program. So I'm on the governor's advisory board, and I didn't recall that grant, so I called down to Baton Rouge to ask about it. And the lady that I spoke to says, well, this is all it is JBIG money. You get JBIG money, Juvenile Accountability Grant. And so actually what they were doing is just they took their money from one source and applied it to another program. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that grant funding is really, there's been a tremendous reduction in grant funding. But you're right, I could find somebody to be willing to help us kick in and run that program. But it's such a structured program, you have to have trained counselors to make the presentation to the kids in the class.
Well, also, look, somebody from the state was talking about how we have a lot of recidivism programs in place, and I think there's something that they're pushing. I don't know if it's just for adults or if it's for adults and youth. So that's why I was asking about if you could possibly see if you could probably partner with some of these organizations or see what they have.
Mr. Foreman's been the director now how long?
6 months.
6 months, and he's been very, very aggressive as far as finding grant money. He's got money through the Community Foundation. He just got another grant from
The United Way.
So, there are, but then again, they run a multitude of programs for us. They run all our diversion type programs and our FINS program, truancy. So, this is really the only court program, or the only program that the court has that it can send kids directly to without, as Clay mentioned, without putting them in detention.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I got Mr. Lynn, then Mr. Yesterday.
I wanted to touch base on something that you had said, Mr. Cox, in regard that 2 years ago I asked for data on all of the programs that Caddo Parish funds in regard to juvenile truancy, recidivism, just all the programs that we have out there. And I know that in those last 2 years we've hired 2 people to track statistics, and still in those 2 years we still don't have this information. So as a commissioner, when I'm spending the taxpayers' money for programs to benefit the youth of Caddo Parish, I don't know if I'm spending the taxpayers' money on programs that work, or I don't know if I'm spending the money on programs that don't work. And until all those facts come back, I'm trusting, and of course certainly we trust you and we trust everybody at the juvenile detention facility. However, the numbers aren't there, and if I've been asking for these numbers for 2 years, what gives? What's the holdup?
Well, let me say this. I don't want to speak for Clay, but I'm going to tell you the problem. The problem, it can be laid right in my lap. 4 years ago, I agreed with the Supreme Court to take on a free database called IGES. And they said, okay, we're going to make Caddo Parish Court the guinea pig. We'll develop the program from the ground up. We'll hand it to you to see how it works. Well, they did. And it's not working like it should. And I must admit, I was the one who raised my hand and said, yes, we'll take this program. Now, since that time, we've been making modifications as we go along. I'd have to defer to Clay on how things are coming here, in the last 6 months. But there has been some improvement. And I know 2 years ago you did ask for that information, because I recall it. But we just didn't have the capability to give you that information through the database. Now, some programs, which we hand count, all the programs through Volunteers for Youth Justice, we can give you statistics on. But some of those other programs we haven't been able to. Unfortunately, that database and the Supreme Court dropped some.
How long have we had this IGES anchor dragging us down?
Well, we've had the program almost 4 years now.
And when will we have enough sense to cut the cord and disconnect and move on to something that we can, if we're wasting $50,000 a year on programs that don't work, that could be money that we could double down on a program that does work. And if we don't know the information on what works and doesn't work, then we need to be able to know that. And if we need to dump a system and get a system that does work, that we can track the facts and the history of the youth, then I think that we need to find out what that first step is on putting together a system to where we can know if we're spending money on things that work or if we're spending money on things that don't work. And until we do that, then we're shooting in the dark.
Commissioner Lynn, if I can address, the JPEG fund is a Supreme Court funded program. It didn't cost us a dime. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it was free.
So we didn't pay for
that. I realize that it didn't cost us a dime. However, it's costing us every year for the last 4 years on funding programs that don't work, and it's also costing us every year for funding programs insufficiently that do work. And so if there's programs that do work, then we need to increase their funding. If there's programs that don't work, we need to cut them.
Okay. And you mentioned also the data analysis folks at Mr. Steve Snow that we hired.
Yes.
They're tracking primarily Annie Casey Foundation initiative for us, so we can give you all kind of data on that. Unless there's some other program beyond that you need data for.
Let's expand their duties.
If I may, the politics behind IGES is that the Supreme Court funds a lot of other things we have. They have influence over our state funding. So we are trying to work with IGES to improve it. It's happening slowly, and it may not ever happen. So what we did starting this year, we're doing our own already. You asked me to do it. We started at January 1, so we are keeping our own data on it, parallel to trying to work with IGES. We are trying to do our best to work with the state, and if it does come to fruition, great. If it doesn't, we have our own that we started in January of this year, tracking every kid that goes through detention, every kid that comes on probation, every sanction they get, every program they're served that serves them, everything. And we'll track if they ever commit another crime or come back in on probation, same crime, but come into detention over and over for probation violations. We'll be able to track that to tell you essentially if the kid is back on the right track or still on the wrong track. We have that started this year, and all I was responding to in this was, I don't have any data for you yet. I'm 2 months and 22 days, 1 month and 22 days in. We really don't have enough data to tell you yet. We'll get it as quickly as we can, because like you say, we don't want to wait around to see if IGES will work or not. We'll do our best to help to work with the state, but if not, we have our own.
And so we've got a system in place now and everything's going to be smooth and we'll have data on everything in 3 months, 6 months.
I could give you a quarterly report, I could give you a 6-month report. You're probably going to need, I would say, at least an 18-month report to say if something's effective or not. You want to track a kid that graduates from Facts of Life, how does he do for 18 months? That's something where it's going to sustain. He may be able to keep together for a month. Let's see, I can give you month to month how they're doing. I can just
So
as soon as we have the data.
16 months for good data.
That would give us much better data at the end of 18 months, 16 months total.
But Facts of Life data, we can give you that today from when the program first started.
Yes, I realize that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Escudé.
Okay, so you're saying you have the data gathering situation resolved? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I wouldn't say it's resolved. We've got a spreadsheet data collection system that we created because we can't wait for IGES. It's not a database that we would purchase that probably would give us better results, but those are quite expensive.
So you're manually collecting information and putting it on spreadsheets, basically?
Yes.
And the two people that are collecting this data, just be candid. They're working 8 hours a day?
Yes.
Steady on it?
No, it doesn't take all that time.
What else they do?
Well, other data. They're collecting things. We try to break down every child that's arrested in a school-related incident. We try to break down by zip codes. We try to break down lots of different things so that we can be talking with the decision makers about what we do. If there are particular neighborhoods or schools or things that need to be addressed, we're going to try to collect the data for you.
Well, in light of that, first of all, I want to commend you because, a few years back we were talking about average detainees were 42, and we've cut that in half, and that is a good thing. I don't think that I understand it, but maybe you guys, not blaming you like you guys, but maybe you haven't done as good a job explaining to us in detail about what has been achieved by lowering the average inmate population. I think that, when people tend to think a lot of times that if we've cut it in half, they think your expenses cut in half. And that's not the case, because your fixed expenses, your personnel doesn't change. Doesn't matter whether you have 1 or 20, you got the same amount of guards and all. Some people understand it, some don't. So I don't know that you've made your case in explaining the savings and how it was realized and why it was what it was and not more. And I think once people understand that, then they realize, well, okay, we've made progress. I imagine the only things that you can really save on with your population cut in half naturally is the meds and the food and personal supplies. That's about it.
That's it.
But the rest of the expenses, the utilities, the electricity, the salaries, they go on and they don't go away. And it's not to say that's a bad thing. The good thing is the number is down. But I'm like Mr. Lynn, I want to continue to support these programs, but we have to know whether we're making the best use of our money. And if you say it's going to be 18 months before we get good data, then we're going to go through this again next budget year, and we're going to be sitting here wondering what works, and you're going to ask for funding for the program, and we're just going to be shooting in the dark. And I don't want to wait 18 months.
I truly don't. And it may be impossible for you to come up with that data. Ultimately, what I'd like to see us do, and I've had this private conversation, is that we look at our total investment, our annual investment with you guys on these type of programs, once we have determined what works, and then on an annual basis, allocate you those funds and let you determine where you're going to put them. Because we're not in it day to day, we don't have the data, the knowledge, we don't know what works, rather than, this is kind of a shotgun approach, and it's always an emergency approach. We got this crisis or that crisis. I would rather try to get some hard data and initially get that number of what it's going to take to support your efforts, which are showing progress. I admit that, and I'm all for that. I want to continue it and identify that finite source of money and annually appropriate it to you and say, Clay, Ted, you guys, it's your ball. And here, you spend it where you think it needs to be spent best, and we want to see continued improvement, But that's where I'd like to go with it. Whether or not the committee meets or not, I'll tell you right now, I'll go ahead and sponsor an ordinance to get you your money for the next few months to continue this program. I don't want to drop the ball on it. Then we've lost data. I like the program personally. The parental involvement aspect is something that appeals to me. That the parents have to be involved, to follow up, to work with their child to keep them on the road from being a repeat offender. As Michael can probably tell you, and the rest of us, when we grew up, the facts of life were, when the cops brought us home, they left. The facts of life were explained to us on the strap of the belt. Amen. And nobody had to tell our parents they needed to do that. But this is a different day and time, and we need to take a different approach. But I want to continue to see this go. I believe in the program. I want to get the bridge funding in place, have us some hard numbers. I would ask you to have some hard numbers by June on the specific to this program, and I would urge you well before our budget process begins next year to have as much of that hard data and information on the programs that you have, the success rates, and what's most important to you guys, so that we're not here again next year, and we can do something reasonable. And like I said, fund you annually, and unless you have a crisis or an emergency or something, let you do your jobs, which you do well, and so that we can work on other things and not directly be in your business. But and I also, too, want to point out and apologize that I think personally, I'm not speaking about anybody, it just doesn't matter if they're not here, that especially an agency that's part of the parish and related to the parish, that I think it's really just ashamed that you couldn't get your request put on an agenda for a committee meeting. I mean, our committee meetings and our public meetings here are the forum for the general public, for our entities who are associated and working with us, whether it be juvenile justice or the district courts or anybody else, to advocate their case and have the people's voice heard. And I don't think anybody should be not denied anything in a committee, and I just want to let you know I'm sorry that happened. I'm kind of disgusted with it, and I would encourage all of those who sit on this body who chair committees that it's not our meeting. It is there are public meetings, and anybody should be able to bring anything to the table. Thank you.
And that's why I wanted this to go before the committee, because it's not the chairperson's responsibility of any committee to determine what comes to that committee or what doesn't. If it fits within those parameters, then that committee needs to hear it, regardless of how the chairperson feels about it. And I would hope that if you have an ordinance, if you could have it written in time for the committee to take a look at it, just so we can say we went through the normal process with it. And I just have one other thing I want to say. Please, and I found this to be epidemic, and I'll use it in government, with the school system, with government in general, with juvenile. Everybody has 500 programs, but seldom, very seldom, do you ever get the results of the program. And I mean, if this was in private business, your job would depend on how well that program did. But it seems like because it's other people's money, that government doesn't seem to operate very well. They just want another program. And so I'm saying for this one commissioner here, if you ever let another program and you bring it before us, please have a portion in there that is set up to do reporting and give accurate results, or I don't even want to see it myself. And I can't picture anyone who is in charge of a program that can't tell you after a month or two if that program is being successful or not. It's like going to the doctor. The doctor says, I have this new medication. I have no idea if it's going to work, but it's the only medication we can give you. So he keeps giving it to his patients, and if he doesn't check to see if they're dying or getting worse, and he just keeps giving them that medication, we got a problem. And that's in essence what I think government programs do a lot of times. Nobody checks to see if they really work. So that's my speech for today.
Mr. President's report.
Yeah.
Just, Commissioner Williams, if you can talk Eric and give me $350,000, I'll start the boot camp that next month.
Yeah, we'll work on it.
Okay, special resolutions.
So, resolution of recognition for Kerry Camp, General Manager of the Radio Group and KA Radio.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second. A motion by Mr. Williams, second by Mr. Dominic. Cast your vote, please. And Mr. Williams, you're going to make the presentation?
I'm going to read the resolution.
Okay.
If you would stand with me, is Mr. Giles here?
Yeah, here he is.
There you go, Brother Jack.
Mr. Giles. In the name and by the authority of the Caddo Parish Commission, proclamation of recognition and congratulations to KA 980, The Light, AM Radio, and Kerry Camp, General Manager of the Radio Group. Whereas the Caddo Parish Commission is always pleased to extend appropriate recognition and commendation to the organizations and institutions which undergird the social fabric of this community, and to acknowledge the important events and milestones which occur within their corporate existence. And whereas such an institution is KOKA, The Light, 980 AM Radio, and Kerry Camp, General Manager of the Radio Group of Shreveport, which is celebrating their successful Stellar Gospel Music Award for small market radio stations for the year 2011. And whereas KOKA Radio has garnered the award designed to honor those who play a major role in the delivery of gospel music by helping to foster the steady increase in the demand for gospel music. One area cited among many in 2011 after 4 years of nominations in KOKA's selection was their community outreach to Shreveport-Bossier and its citizens. And whereas remarkably during the past 39 years, KOKA has remained the gospel leader in Arbitron ratings for a consecutive 22 years and has prevailed as one of the top 4 local radio stations throughout the years. Excuse me. Whereas much of KOKA's success can be attributed to their program director, Dr. Albert Eddie Giles, and to Mr. Kerry Camp, General Manager of the Radio Group. Mr. Camp's dedication to Shreveport and Caddo Parish has been apparent over the years with his many hours of community and organizational service. Mr. Camp and the Radio Group have received many accolades over the years in the radio industry, but along with this award, his proudest moments have always been service to the community, his school, and his church. Now therefore be it resolved by the Caddo Parish Commission meeting in legal and regular session this 22nd day of February 2012 that it does hereby extend its heartiest expressions of congratulations to KOKA 980 AM and the Kerry Camp, the Radio Group General Manager, for receiving the Stellar Gospel Award for small market radio stations, thereby bringing attention to an activity and business that entertained, elevated, and enriched this community. Signed, Michael Thibodeau, President, Lindora Baker, Vice President, Michael Williams, District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To say on behalf of the commission body, the president and the vice president and the rest of the colleagues, I want to say thank you to your organization, to the radio group, to you, Dr. Giles, and to your wife, for all the fine work that you do in our community that oftentimes go unnoticed. I think the radio group their message rings out not only just in Louisiana, but Texas and the architects, providing the community service that you've been providing for our community over the years. And I just want to say thank you and recognize you. Oftentimes, we don't take care of our home at home, and for the award that you received. So thank you so much. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you. First of all, let me apologize for my lateness, and I have my lovely wife and son with me here. But let me say, Mr. Chairman and Parish Commissioners, on behalf of Mr. Kerry D. Kent, who is out of town, and all the staff and management at the radio group, 980 AM KOKA, I would like to thank you for all your recognition of this achievement award, on which we are extremely grateful. And the Stellar Award is the Grammy of gospel music. It's the pinnacle to which all aspire in gospel music industry. And to have this achievement, or this milestone in the huge of our heartwarming acknowledgement that we feel here today by our parish government on Friday, we would like to say, March 16th at 6:30 p.m., we will host an event entitled Celebration of a Stellar Moment, where we would like to invite all of you to come and share with us. It will be at Praise Temple, Full Gospel Baptist Church, 4725 Greenwood Road, Bishop Larry L. Brandon, pastor, and we invite you all to come. And again, as program director and music director of the Stellar Award radio station, the Stellar Award radio station, The Light, 980 AM KOKA. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would love for you to just at least feel this award.
All right.
How can I get one of those? I got to sing? I ain't gonna make it.
You did it for not singing.
We'll give you one just for being quiet.
We're gonna take you a picture. Like a kid?
Matthew, want to take a picture for you?
I lost my other turnaround map on that.
Go put that on his Facebook page tonight. You watch it.
That's right.
Oh, let me get mine.
I got you in
Perpetrated up
here.
All right, turn around.
I like to thank my family and my friends.
This is going to be all over Facebook.
But I never get a chance to get one of these. That's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's beautiful.
Go ahead.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it is. Don't give her joy, she might throw it at somebody then.
That's nice. Yep. Go on there.
That's gospel Grammy.
Gospel Grammy.
Okay.
That's not it.
It's neat.
Can I do a 100 one?
Thanks for letting us paw your Grammy.
Chairman.
Thank you.
It's neat. Congratulations again.
Pretty close together, the city on the road and in the house.
Oh, wow.
Great. Congratulations and thank you. All right, communication committee reports. I've got Commissioner Williams.
I'd like to recognize, it's our commission clerk will read off Mr. Rodney White. I'm glad he's here. He had a recent death in his family. He took the time to come and be with us, and I'm very grateful that he's here. Would you like to read that, Mr. Clerk, real quickly?
Yes, sir. In the name and by the authority of Caddo Parish Commission, know ye that whereas on the 22nd day of February 2012, this District 3 Small Business Owner Award is presented to Mr. Rodney White, White's Printing, for his forceful and dynamic commercial presence in the community and for the contributions he has made to the economic development and well-being of the area. Signed, Michael D. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. White. Commissioner White and his family have been a cornerstone in the African American community on providing printing. A lot of us running for public office and a lot of churches and other events have benefited from the fine work and graphic that they do in our community. And if we're looking to partner up, Mr. Administrator, someone that want to be on the Parish DBA program or amend the name you want to change, I think Mr. White would be a worthwhile project to work with and consider. So hopefully you would meet with him and look at some of his work and let's get him involved. Thank you again, Mr. White.
Thank you. I would like to say, and thank you first of all for recognizing, White's Printing is one of the oldest existing printing business in Shreveport and probably the oldest minority printing business here in Shreveport, and actually was pretty much sustained and ran by my mom, who actually started the business back in the 50s, which was kind of unheard of, a black female running a business, and nevertheless a printing business, which is a non-traditional African-American line of work. And in lieu of her passing at the age of 95, we just funeralized her Saturday. I take this as a honor and a recognition of her many years of labor and hard work to the community. And thank you guys very much.
Mr. Hopkins.
We're still on communication committee reports.
Any other communications?
We don't have any today, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to
Williams. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to continue with what we did the other day with a particular ordinance that I personal with, because most of you know I'm passionate about things when I take on a project, and I'm not posturing for any attention or any media or any exposure, because I am concerned about the plight of Americans, but most of all I'm concerned about the plight of our youth and our children. And this country does need an extreme makeover in certain parts of our country, because now we live in a Facebook, fiber optic, iPod, computeristic society. A lot of our children didn't get the values that Commissioner Escaday and I came upon. Well, we only had 3 sets of rules. You had school clothes, you had church clothes, and you had play clothes. And we had those traditional conservative values that made me the man that I am today, because we was a village child and we all cared about each other. If ever this country needs healing, it needs love, and it needs compassion. And a lot of the things that we're seeing in our schools, in our community, in our churches, in our shopping centers, they're despicable, they're deplorable. That was a time when I grew up when you saw pajamas being worn in the public. We was taught to wear your pajamas at home. The government had always intervened in our lives, because if it had not been for government, I wouldn't even have the right to vote. I wouldn't even have a Human Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. So government have always intervened when a time when they saw a need. I never thought this day and time that you have heavy-handed government getting in the business of people. And maybe, I don't know the direction we should go. But we all agree we do have a problem. We do have a problem with our society and how we dress. Even in Chicago, you can't fish in pajamas. Even in Hawaii, you can't wear only just swimming trunks in Hawaii. Even in Colorado, you have an obscenity law where you can't just walk around with anything that's unbecoming. Even in Ireland, they are forming a pajama law. Even in the UK, they even perform a pajama law. And most of this stuff is not made in America. Not even made in American soil. We got foreign products on American soil. Not only are they poisoning our kids, they're taking our jobs too. And most of the patrons that are buying these products would love to shop in our stores. Sometimes they don't shop because they see this hip-hop generation have taken advantage of the Constitution. It also is a health hazard. Oftentimes when you go and put on pajamas, most of the time you haven't taken a bath. Your personal hygiene, the public safety, protecting the environment is important. What is it going to have to take? Some type of bacterial infection from somebody's skin and somebody has to die? So I always like to take a proactive approach and not a reactive approach to save the quality of life and protect the environment. And today, the other day, when I asked my colleagues, would you just consider the professional courtesy and allow some to come before the public so the public can have some input? And that's what we was talking about today when Commissioner yesterday said that the public ought to have input on matters to their concern. The people's voices ought to be heard, not cut off the date. Whether you're for it or against it, allow me to have at least my day in court. I'm not committing a crime. What I'm talking about is not a crime. What I'm talking about is concern about the direction this country is going in. And hopefully I'll get that opportunity again in the future. I don't know if we do it through a resolution. I'm going to consider to pursue my campaign on letter writing campaign, writing the President of the United States of America, writing our governor, writing the corporate CEOs of some of these major companies, getting them involved. If we can't legislate, at least we can educate about the future of America is dwindling away in the moral fiber as it can. Not only is it a moral issue, it also is a safety issue. Not only is it a safety issue, but the products are not even made in America. They're made on foreign soil. When we go to other countries, we adopt their rules and regulations. You do what the Romans do in Rome. What Iran do in Iran and Pakistan, we do in other places. So let's adopt what America does here. So hopefully I will be pursuing this in the future. I have received a lot of positive phone calls from the public saying me, keep up the good work, keep up the good job, and I will continue to be a drum major to ensure that we restore the American values in our community. Thank you.
Got Ms. Bowman?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a brief statement because it's not my goal to sit here and try to oppose Commissioner Williams. He has every right to bring forward whatever he would so chooses, as well as any other commissioner here. But I have the same right to disagree, same right to oppose, and that's where I was yesterday. It's where I was a few weeks ago and a month ago, and that's where I am today. It's not a matter of not wanting to see someone bring an issue forward one way or the other, but I have that right just as well as anybody else. We all do. I've always believed that morals are taught at home, at Sunday school, in the church maybe. And ironically, where we are at this day and age, we don't have the village that we used to have that raised our children, helped to raise children, especially when we were kids. I am one that always tell people about one of our neighbors. We called her, my sister and most of the kids in the neighborhood, called her Nosy Dora. But it was never a time my mother left and she saw us do something. She came and let us know first that we were wrong. Then she told our parents on us. And you just don't have that. And it's not my job. I don't feel that it is the police nor the sheriff's job to be fashion police when we have so much other stuff going on in not only the city but the parish as well. When we look at the fact that you've got just night before last, I think there were 8 different call-ins, shootings in different sections of the city of Shreveport. I mean, I want the police to police. I don't want them to tell me what to wear and that I'm wrong about it. So that is my reasoning, that is my rationale behind not supporting this, and that's just the way I feel. It's nothing personal toward Commissioner Williams. It would be nothing personal toward any commissioner here that would put something forward like that. If I don't believe in it, I just don't believe in it, and I have the right to oppose it. Thank you so much.
So remind all commissioners, this is not on the agenda, so I hope we don't get into any long discussion over this. Mr. Williams, I got you on there.
I'll close. I respectfully respect every commissioner up here. If you had something, even if I were against it, I would still allow you the proper protocol for it to go through the channels. I had the opportunity to serve as president at 38 years old, very young. Back then, the commission was in chaos. It was Commissioner Escudé and I that broke the race and united this commission together. I think the chair ought to be able to unite this commission together. When you see their division in the House, we need to be able to have decorum, whereas we have proper protocol in a work session. And I was under the impression, I don't want to be hoodwinked or bamboozled or undermined, thinking that I had some on the agenda that will allow proper protocol, have a public hearing, let the people say, vote it up or vote it down. But the people ought to be able to have input on something that's going to affect their life. Whether it's good or bad, they ought to have a say there. That's all I'm saying. I wouldn't do it to you. I respect the same professional Commissioner Curtis that I would give you back in return. And I hope that we'll revisit this one day. We just need to find out how we get there. Maybe through a resolution, if not law. So I appreciate your support. If we find a way to agree to have a public letter writing campaign as a resolution, and I hope you guys will support that because it's not a law. All it's saying is to the private companies, please have some type of dress code, because you do lose business when you have people that are non-conforming to the laws of our country. And people that have the resources to buy sometimes leave the store. So hopefully, if not policy, hope we have a resolution in the future. And I will get with you guys on that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have President's Report.
I don't have anything.
Next, we adopt the minutes of the regular meeting held on February the 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Dominic, second by Mr. Lynn. Cast your vote, please.
Just that Ken said draw.
Like I said, just always put Ms. Bobin as a second, no matter who said it. Just okay, that passes.
Next, we move to public hearing on ordinances. Ordinance number 5174 of 2012, amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Riverboat Fund in the amount of $40,000 for the C.C. Antoine Black History Empowerment Plan for the year 2012.
I second Ms. Bowman's motion.
All right, do we have any speakers for or against ordinance number 5174, this public hearing? All right, it's closed. Next one, please.
Ordinance number 5175 of 2012, amending and reenacting Chapter 26, Section 26-185 of the Caddo Parish Code of Ordinances to add the streets of Stoyer Circle to the list of stop intersections.
Do we have any speakers for or against this ordinance 5175? Seeing none, we'll call that one closed also.
Ordinance number 5176, to accept the streets in Fort Worth Oaks Unit 3 into the Parish of Caddo system.
Any speakers for or against 5176? Seeing none, we'll call that closed.
Ordinance number 5177 of 2012, to accept the streets in Worth Oaks Unit 4 into the Parish of Caddo system.
Anyone in favor or against 5177? That public hearing is closed.
Ordinance number 5178 of 2012, to revoke a portion of dedication of an unnamed road in the Parish of Caddo.
Any speakers for or against 5178? Public hearing is closed.
Ordinance number 5179 of 2012, to revoke the dedication of an unnamed road in the Parish of Caddo.
Any speakers for or against 5179? Seeing none, that is closed.
That'll conclude our public hearing on ordinances. We move to ordinances for final passage. Ordinance number 5174 of 2012, amending the budget of estimated revenues and expenditures for the Riverboat Fund and the amount of $40,000 for the C.C. Antoine Black History Empowerment Plan.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, before we vote, I want to remind everybody that for ordinances, all 7 of us will have to vote in favor, since it takes a majority of the full commission. So there are, I believe, 7 of us here, so just wanted to remind everybody of that. Ms. Bowman?
Yes, sir. I certainly want to mention Commissioner Cox is not here, and he is the one that had this placed on the agenda. I do support it, because if we can recall, Mr. Lee came before us on numerous occasions right after I first came on board, and we had promised him basically that we would support his efforts. Apparently, something wasn't done right. It didn't end up in the budget. We met in our committee meeting and decided to, go back and try to bring it forward again. So that's where we are, and that's how we end up. I'm sorry.
It's something from the state, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was what?
It was waiting on something from the state.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew it was something that didn't happen, and then it went through the committee and now back here, and that's where we are, so I do support it.
Okay. Mr. Dominic?
I move the logo ordinances number 5174, 5175, 5176, 5177, 5178, and 5179 for final passage.
Second one is one more. 181.
This 80's for another.
Oh, that's it. Okay. You got it.
Johnson.
So we've got a motion by Mr. Dominic to englobe over the rest of the ordinances, and a second by...
Hello.
Second by Mr. Escobar. Any speakers? Cast your vote, please.
Mr. President, just I noticed the public hearings ran through ordinance 5179, but 5181 is also...
Introduction. It's introduction by title.
Beg your pardon.
Introduction by title.
Wake up.
All
Got
right.
it ready.
Okay. Cast your vote, please. Unanimous, 7-0.
Next, we move to ordinances for introduction. Ordinance number 5181 of 2012 to revoke the dedication of the unnamed road in the parish of Caddo. Move to our work session minutes are not complete yet, so we'll move that for the next meeting. We'll move to resolutions. Resolution number 11 of 2012 committing certain monies to pay engineering and admission fees associated with the LCDBG application for the Belvedere Water Project in North Caddo Parish.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Dominic, second by Ms. Bowman. Either of you have comments?
Yeah, I'll briefly say, this is the one, this resolution, Mr. Willie Washington has come before several times. This is the one that's seeking water to be run out in the rural areas in the Blanchard area to fund about 72 homes in that area, primarily lower income families. The parish received an LCDBG block grant. I think it was $300,000 or $400,000. Representative Smith, Jane Smith at the time, was able to get $250,000 for this project. It's short about $38,000. If you read the resolution, it refers to $38,700 and $90,500. The $90,500 comes from the Louisiana Community Water Enrichment Fund, which is the amount of money that we received from Representative Jane Smith's efforts. The parish will be coming out with the $38,700 to complete this project. I would ask for everybody to please support this. It's either do it now, come up with $38,700, or when we do the water project 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, we're going to be coming up about $700,000. So
This for your district?
Yes.
You need my vote today, right?
No, I don't need your vote.
Okay, we'll see.
I'd like to have it, but...
Okay, we'll see.
I'd like to have it.
Okay, this is for your district, correct?
It is.
All right.
Wow.
Okay.
Cast your vote, please. It fails, 6-1.
Wait, the resolution.
It's a resolution.
Oh, it's a resolution.
Fails.
It still fails.
It fails.
That's correct.
Resolution
Yes, sir.
Yes.
has to have 7?
Yes, sir.
When does this have to be?
We needed it for tomorrow, because if we don't have this resolution, then we lose all the funding opportunity to get to the $700,000 for the grant.
99% sure. Let me just give it a try.
All right, Director Juanita?
You gotta have seven.
It takes a majority.
It's seven votes for president.
Yeah.
I just want to come up. What's he saying?
Just 1 minute.
All right, we'll come back to it. Well, we have to wait, because we need to have 7 votes.
Or is it a simple
We're gonna take about a 5-minute break.
present? Of those present.